Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're happy that you could join us tonight for our Heart Healthy Cook Along. We are going to be cooking a meal. Hopefully, it should take under 45 minutes. We've chosen some different kinds of recipes. One thing that patients always ask me is they get tired of just cooking and baking chicken. And do I have any new recipes for chicken? So we're going to be making a chicken pumpkin curry soup. It's got a nice blend of flavors. It's a lot of vegetables. It kind of is in the realm of kind of like a creamed soup. It's going to have a lot more protein and fiber and a little less carbohydrates than say like a cream of chicken soup, and it'll come together pretty quickly. We also have a nice warm cabbage salad. Usually people do a soup and salad kind of dish, and in the summertime we do a lot of food demos with salad dressings and using the vegetables from the garden. Well, cabbage is a winter vegetable, super cheap. And we're using purple cabbage because it has all of the heart healthy color, kind of like red wine is good for your health. So that purple color of the red cabbage makes it especially heart healthy. And this is a warm salad that comes together pretty quickly. It has some good healthy fat in there with some feta cheese and some nuts, a little bit of natural sweetness with some apricots and just a tad of honey in the dressing, and the dressing's made from olive oil. So it's a nice heart healthy salad, and it pairs very nicely taste wise and color wise with our pumpkin curry soup. And then everybody always wants a little bit of a sweet. Patients, my diabetics are always asking, patients with diabetes I should say, are always asking for something a little sweet at the end of dinner. So these cookies are made with almond flour. So they have a little more healthy fat, a little more protein than your average Oreo cookie, for example. It's got some coconut oil in it. It's got some healthy nuts, not only just the almonds, but we're going to add little walnuts or pecans. And then it's got 60% chocolate, which is actually pretty healthy for you. It's got a lot of antioxidants, and everything is made in one bowl. We'll talk through the thing how you'll see that when you cook with almond flour, it's a little different than whole wheat flour because, for example, in a regular chocolate chip cookie, you might make a little ball and stick it on the cookie plate, and that doesn't work with these cookies. You have to kind of flatten them out and put them down. But you'll see that technique. So we're going to pan to each dish as we cook it. Chef Scott is here to give you some knife demos to talk a little bit about how he would cut all of the different vegetables for these dishes, and we'll give you some hints during the way as you're preparing the meal. And we're happy to take any of your questions if you want to put them in the chat. And if not, then just sit back and relax. Hopefully some of you are cooking with us. And we want to thank the Dana and the Wellness Committee for putting all this together. And there are going to be a couple of the residents from Harpers Ferry Family Medicine along with Chef Scott. So enjoy.
Just be very careful. You're doing it like this. Next thing, red cabbage or green cabbage. So it's already been cored. It's already had the core part taken out of it, which is the really pithy part. It's something that's really, really inedible. It's not very flavorful. So I want to show you how to work on a cabbage. We'll take it, so you can see the spine coming right down the middle here. So you can take it, cut right down the middle on your spine. And as you can see, sideways, very thick. You don't need that. You can get rid of that. Get rid of it on this side here too. I'll move this one off to the side. So as you can see, the basis of the cabbage, the way it was grown, the way it's harvested, it has all these nice tight leaves going in this direction. So I can shred it going this way, or I can shred it going sideways. A lot of times what I like to do is, I'll show you both ways, is you can take it and just go straight down this way, if you'd like. To give it like a more of a rough country chop. You want it like that. The other way that a lot of people like to do is if you're going to do it for like hot dogs, or you want to do it for a nice hearty slaw to go on a salad or a sandwich, you want to cut it long ways, again, thin cuts, and you'll get nice thin slices, nice thin strands.
Scott doing the cookie demo.
There's something on these. Something popped up on them. So you can see what we have right here. As you can see them right here. We've got a nice even cut all the way around. The bigger pieces like this, you can use them as a saute. You can use them in the salad, however you want to do it. It works either way. And again, I'm moving things right now just for the sense of purposes. I'm moving on the side of my cutting board. But when you're done one item, you want to move it off your board. The problem, what happens is you get everything going, you get everything set out, you're working on everything, everything's cutting, everything, and then all of a sudden you find yourself working in this wee little corner over here, which doesn't give you much space. And again, you run the risk of cutting yourself. You want to keep your area clean, organized, clean as you go. As my chef I learned under, it's a clean kitchen, happy kitchen. If it wasn't a clean kitchen, it wasn't a happy kitchen. Carrots. The soup, the way we're doing it today, is taking it, peeling it, just real light peels like this. Just keep going all the way around, spinning it. Key aspect here, have a nice sharp knife. You can wash off the outer side. You do not have to get rid of this part. You can wash it. Still nutritious, still edible. No sense in wasting it. This will actually incorporate and cook down quicker in your soup. This is also a nice way to add sweetness to your spaghetti sauce, your marinara. And a lot of people won't realize that the sweetness came from your carrot instead of the sugar, but it is much better for you with the antioxidants and nutrients through that. And you'll see that that's what we're doing today as well for the soup that we're going to show you later. Now, next, we'll show you onions. A lot of times people see these and they go, oh, they're too ripe, they're overdone. What can I do with these? Well, what I do is just cut right down through the middle. And as you can see, you've got this part here, just pull these out like that. Then cut. And this is bitter. That's why we don't keep that. Then cut the end off, spin around, cut the other end off. A lot of people will tell you, if you leave the root end on and cut it, it'll work better, it'll hold up better. If you leave the top end, cut it first, let all the juices weep out of it, it'll hold up better. You won't cry as much. They're still going to be the same. The older the onion, the more onion juice you're going to get out of it, and the more you're tending to cry. The only way I found to do it, the secret is you can either learn how to do this with your eyes closed, or you get somebody else to cut the onion for you. Because it's inevitably, you're going to be cutting, especially if you're doing French onion soup, you're going to be here all day. So what I do again, I take the onion, as you see the onion, just like the cabbage, rings are coming along this way. So let's work with that. I spin it so that I can cut, and I cut like 3/4 of the way through, straight down, following the curvature of the onion. And if a piece comes out of the bottom, let's pop it back underneath there, put it back together, spin it a little, about 90 degrees, and then just go straight down. And that's a dice. And if you get to the point that you've got two, it's not as big or small as you want, take a line like this, holding here, and just gently rock it, moving it forward, moving it back. And when it gets a little too wide, bring it back together and cut it down again. I'll move this off to the side and I'll show you another way to slice these. This one I'll just leave whole, just for the sense of showing you how best to slice it. Always like to peel off the outer side, being grown in the ground, less chance of bacteria and things on there. Even after you've washed it, I like to get rid of it. So for on this side, as you can see, got the bitter part a little here. We'll just leave that on just to show you, but I'll cut the other side. Hold the onion, again, 3 fingers, clamping it down, keeping it firm on the sides, holding it. And then this would be like a French onion soup cut, just straight down. And you get like half moons. This is also good for burgers, salad, cucumbers and onions, marinated onions, things like that. And then when you get to the end and you can't cut like this anymore, then you just flip it over on its side, and just feed it right through and you've got the dice. So here you've got nice shreds of onion there. Again, the key, quick, do it with a sharp knife. If you're doing it with a dull knife, you're gonna have issues. Garlic, I love the fresh garlic. I like to use them close. You'll see people that'll shake them in the jar. People will sit here and peel them. What I like to do is just take them, press it, pop it off. We'll just show you one of them right now here. What you do is you'll take this, take the flat part of your knife. If you don't have a flat part of your knife, you can use the bottom of the skillet if you want to use that. A wine bottle, something along the lines, but you want to take it and smack it. Now what that does is it releases the garlic. So there you've got your garlic. It's nice, it's smushed. And then I like to smash it even more, especially if it needs to be minced. Just take it, smash it down, smash it and press it, smash it and press it. So it's kind of like a paste. As you can see, get all that nice goodness there. Then I take it and put it here. If you look to like Jacques Pepin, when he's doing it with Julia Childs, they always say to put herbs and parsley and things like that, so that you're soaking up your garlic in with the parsley you're using, so it's not going in your cutting board. It's however you really prefer to do it. It will certainly accentuate your herbs and give you more flavor. But if you don't have the herbs, you're not putting it in. When we're just doing the demo, you want to do it this way. And as you can see, after it's smashed, spinning the knife, again, holding here, not underneath, and just letting the knife do the work. And there you've got a nice mince that you can have. And it's just as easy to do that, getting nice fresh garlic, as it is to get it out of a jar. And sometimes you got to be careful with the jarred garlic. You want to make sure that you've got the right quality, the right consistency. Sometimes you get one in oil, sometimes you get one in water. Here you can control the way you want to use it yourself. So I think with that being said, that's it for the knife demo. We'll take it from here and we'll switch you over to the recipes that we've got in progress. And thank you for your time.
So we would just want to check in with you real quick to make sure you guys can see well enough. If you're not able, I don't know if you got it in your gallery view, which you see all of the screens that are up, or if you see it pinpointed to just the screen we've got focused on his cutting and this view. So if you want on the view you want to see, there should be 3 dots at the top. If you hover over that, and then you can click on those 3 dots and it'll give you some choices and you can pin it, or you could go to speaker view and it would give you at least this one is the speaker view. So just wanted to check to make sure your views are good and you guys are able to see anything. And don't forget, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat. So we are going to switch over to soup now, right?
Soup.
Okay.
Soup's next.
All right.
You got it?
There we go.
So don't leave this up to me. Hi, I'm Dr. Shadid. I'm one of the residents over at Harper's Ferry. Today we're going to work on a bit of soup here. This is the, what would you call it? Like a cream of chicken with all sorts of different, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like
You're the chef.
it's a curried soup.
Curried
Pumpkin
soup.
curried soup
Pumpkin
with
curried
real
soup.
creaminess. So what he's done, which is nice, is he's heated up his pan first so that you can get the pan hot, then you add your oil. The reason why he did that was because he knew that that would burn the oil if he added the oil to the pan and then tried to heat the pan up. You've got it there. It's got a low smoke point, so you don't want to smoke up your kitchen while you're doing this.
He's giving me a lot of credit. I don't know. All right, go ahead. So chicken.
So now he's going to add the chicken in. So
you're gonna get that in, and then you wanna turn it up a little.
That's it.
Oh, it is all the way high.
That's it.
Okay,
That's all of it.
and this is pre-done chicken, so it doesn't have to really cook that long. And for the sense of showing you on, live, not having a full bank of chefs in the back that we're pulling stuff from, we're doing this in here. So he's gonna stir that up for about a minute or two,
I have something to start up with.
and then,
Just stir.
yes, I got something right here. There we go.
Thank you so much.
We keep everything right within reach. That's the other thing. It's called mise en place. You want to have everything ready to go. As you can see, he's got all this stuff ready to go here, everything right in front of what he's doing.
The one thing about the canned chicken is if you brown it in the oil before you put it into the soup, it's going to give it a lot more flavor. We actually like to use this canned chicken because first of all, it's cheap. It's $2 a can. And we only spent $4 of chicken on this particular soup, and this will feed about 8 people. The another great thing, obviously, would be to use like a rotisserie chicken and pull off after you've had your slices of breast, etc., is to pull it off the bone. But this is a sort of a cheap, quick way to make chicken soup within a half hour.
Right. So now he's got this going on there now. You can take your celery and your onions, and we're going to throw a little bit of carrot in there too. Again, just we're talking about the sweetness. We're going to put all that in the soup right now.
So we're using a shredded carrot instead of little carrot rounds because they will cook much more quickly. It takes quite some time for little round, nickel-sized pieces of carrot to heat up. But when it's shredded like this, it'll heat up much more quickly and it'll blend right into the pumpkin soup.
Yeah,
There we go.
that might be it.
Yeah. We used to do some burner difficulties. That one wasn't as hot, so you can hear. But now there's a sizzle, and you'll see the smoke coming off of here. So what he's doing is he's incorporating. They call it marrying the flavors. What he put in here too with the he's going to put celery in there too now, right?
Yeah. You like this one?
Yeah, that's called a mirepoix. And a mirepoix is the foundation of all your soups, stocks, sauces, and it's always 1 part to 2 parts. So it's 1 part carrot, 1 part celery to 2 parts onion. So if you would use 1 cup carrot, 1 cup celery, you would use 2 cups onion. Or 1 large carrot, 1 large stalk of celery, you want to use 2 large onions. You always want to have that, and that's the ratio. You'll cook that down, and what we're doing is we're incorporating it all now to get the flavor profile together in this pot to really bring everything, give it a pop on and the flavor, the consistency. So as you can see it. You want to see that?
Oh, yeah. That's good.
That'll boil down nicely
Yeah.
as it browns up.
Right. So the next step, what you want to do is you want to add in 2 15-ounce cans of pumpkin puree, which is what we have right here. We've just, for the sense of purposes, opened it up. Canned pumpkin puree, anything, but don't use pumpkin pie filling. Pumpkin pie filling is going to be too seasoned. Sometimes it will also have too much sugar. It depends on where you get it. Just use plain straight pumpkin. You can't cut pumpkin. You can make it yourself, but it's so easy and it's so consistent buying it already canned and done that it's really, to me, it's not worth the effort. And you're going to save yourself time doing it this way. So he's stirring and incorporating everything around, mixing it around. Now what he's going to do to kind of get the cooking going, he's going to put in all of the chicken bone broth. Now we've got bone broth. We've also, you can use regular chicken broth. You can use broth that you got from a carcass of a chicken that you cooked down and you saved it. There's a lot of flavor in there. Bone broth and chicken broth are pretty close to being similar. For me, the bone broth, if you're having like a consommé, it works really well for the flavor profile by itself. But if you're putting it in a soup like this, you can use either or. You can even use chicken-based concentrate and add water to it. And then go that route if you have to.
Can you get enough space for all 3 chickens?
Yeah.
At the very beginning of the pandemic, I went out and bought a bunch of broth and a bunch of canned chicken and a bunch of canned tomatoes, thinking no matter what, I would always be able to have some good chicken and tomato soup.
So as you can see, we've got a large pot here going, but we've got it right up to the edge, which is perfect. We've topped it off. We've got everything in there. The only thing now, he's gonna stir it a little bit, and we're gonna get this going under temp, get this cooking, gonna really get the flavor going. This is also something you can add to a slow cooker or an Instapot. Slow cooker, you can put it on low, do it all day, or you can put it on high and get it done in a couple hours if you choose to. The whole idea is just to get all the flavors and everything to blend together. So what he's going to do now is we're going to put in the heavy cream, and it calls for a half a cup of heavy cream. So I would just pour it. We're just going to pour it in half the container just to start. What?
But the cream got added at the very end.
Well, I want to put it in. Well, it does. The cream normally gets added at the end, but what we're doing is to give it a little bit of different flavor profile. Putting it in the beginning, just half of it, and then we're going to mix that up, and then he's going to put the rest of it in as a creaminess towards the end. We're also going to put in the seasonings right now to get the seasonings going. And we've got curry powder, and we've got everything that's all put together. You can see the nice color now that's developed here. That's what I wanted you to see. Alrighty.
Curry powder and
So
turmeric.
curry powder. Yep.
Turmeric.
So what is it you put in now?
Geez, I don't know. You had it to be turmeric, I think, right?
Oh, do you want to put a little turmeric in it just to have? Yeah, at least we'll put a teaspoon of turmeric in there. A little turmeric is always good.
Cooking on the fly here, chef.
So
Sorry.
you're doing a nice job.
No, thanks to you. It's your help. That's why. Okay.
There you go, perfect. And then do the same thing with the pumpkin pie spice. Now this has got a little bit of like allspice and everything, the pumpkin that's going in there. That'll help with the final flavor profile. And it goes well when you mix all this together with the heavy cream, a little bit in the beginning. I like the flavor and the consistency of doing that, and then finishing up with the rest of the heavy cream at the end when the soup's all ready to go. The other thing that's nice about heavy cream is it'll go from freezing to boiling without any issues, because it'll take the shock, whereas 2% skim, half and half whole milk will tend to condense or congeal and turn into little clumps that gives you a really bad mouthfeel. So what we do now is we just leave this go. We've got it all set up, everything's stirring. We're gonna just let this finish and cook down. Everything will nice, soften up really, really well. Now, what we can also do is, if you want, you can take an immersion blender at the end and process this down, or you can leave it the way it is now and have it with just the nice vegetables and chunks all the way through it. Again, it's a flavor profile thing, whatever you tend to like. Anybody have any questions? Do we have a way to take questions? Anybody have any questions over anything? All righty.
Okay,
Well, let's go ahead and move to
cookies.
the cookies.
Hello, I'm Dr. Khan.
I'm Dr. Hensley. We're family medicine residents down at Harper's Ferry, and today we're going to show you how to make one bowl chocolate chip cookies.
And it's definitely a two-person job, so that's why I'm here to help you.
That's right. Ingredients that you're going to need for this include egg, a sugar substitute like Swerve, Truvia, or today we're going to be using stevia, coconut oil, vanilla extract, almond flour, baking soda, salt, and dark chocolate chips. And then an optional ingredient includes your favorite nut, walnut, almonds, whatever you like. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is to preheat your oven to 325, and then we'll start mixing our ingredients. So we've already cracked an egg into our bowl, and then to that, we're going to be adding 1/3 of a cup of our sugar substitute. So this is one of the reasons that these cookies are more ideal for diabetics, because we're skipping all the real sugar and using a sugar substitute, like again, stevia for us today. So I'll start whisking this up, and then Dr. Khan can tell you
Sure.
a little bit more about the other ingredients. we're gonna be
Yeah,
using.
so in this other bowl, we already have it mixed, but there's almond flour, which is healthier than your normal all-purpose flour. We have baking soda and salt as well. So you always want to separate your wet ingredients and your dry ingredients. That's what we did over here. And the reason you want to do almond flour instead of all-purpose flour is because there's a lot more healthy fats in almond flour, more calcium, magnesium, and potassium. So all good things instead of using all-purpose flour. Some other ingredients we're going to be using today are coconut oil, which is good. Has a lot of healthy fats in here, stimulates metabolism and boosts immunity, and also raises HDL, which is your healthy cholesterol. And then we decided to use dark chocolate chips for our cookies because I love dark chocolate. And also it has a lot of healthy antioxidants, vitamins, and also raises your HDL, which is good. But everything at a moderation. So don't eat an entire bag and think that's healthy. Don't do that.
All right, so while Dr. Khan checks our cookies that are already in the oven, to our egg and our third of a cup of stevia, we're going to be adding a tablespoon of vanilla extract, and then we're going to be adding a third of a cup of our coconut oil. So you'll have to heat your coconut oil to turn it from this stiffer white solid to a nice clear liquid that's easier to stir into the recipe. So you can just pop that in the microwave until it liquefies.
You can use butter in this recipe if you don't have coconut oil at the house. Again, spread out over all of the cookies. It's not going to be too much. And we're going to talk in a little bit about the different fats and what they bring to the cookie and how they can change the health of the cookie. One thing you'll notice is that we did not use the artificial sweeteners like saccharin or sucralose or aspartame. Those change when you have them under heat. So we do prefer to use either monk fruit or stevia. And there's a newest sugar substitute called allulose that actually it can improve the cholesterol profile. So I would go for more one of these sugar sweeteners that are not artificial but are more from plants.
And while Dr. Hensley is making the second batch of cookies, I want to show you what we have. And we have the completed product, which looks like pretty good normal cookies and a lot healthier for you. So it looks pretty good.
And did you make those in a ball when you put them on there?
So with these cookies, they don't rise as much as the regular cookies that you would make. So we put on the cookie sheet and then flattened them into nice cookie shape that we wanted to get edible before they went into the oven.
Yep.
All right, so we've added in our dry ingredients, and then to that we're going to add in my favorite part, the chocolate chips. They told me only a half cup, but I had a half cup plus 2 chocolate chips for a little extra sweetness in my cookie recipe. But it's okay. Mine are still less calories than Dr. Khan's because she added walnuts to hers and I'm skipping
True.
walnuts.
That's true.
You just want to mix your chocolate chips into there. And then on a pre-greased sheet, you just want to take teaspoons and scoop out a little bit of batter. And then, like I said, you can press it into the cookie shape that you want to get. So just flatten it a little bit. You can round off the edges if you're a little more detail oriented than I am. And you're just going to line them up along the cookie sheet. And then you're going to let them bake them for about 8 to 12 minutes.
So these cookies are not necessarily low-calorie cookies, but they are cookies with healthy fat, good amount of protein, some extra fiber, and they're not going to raise blood sugar as much as a regular chocolate chip cookie. And when we do our little slideshow, we'll be comparing the products that we've made tonight with some of their commercial counterparts so that you could see the difference. But this cookie will last a little longer, meaning you're not going to eat 2 or 3 of these. One is often very filling.
That's right. So when you compare these to other cookies, you know, in a similar amount of calories, you're getting a lot more healthy things, a lot better macronutrients. So these are going to have, compared to an Oreo cookie of the same amount of calories, you're going to have more protein, you're going to have more fiber, you're going to have less carbohydrates and a lot less simple sugars. So particularly for diabetics, these are a much better choice for you. And then you're going to want to get approximately 16 cookies out of this recipe to keep the calorie count for what we've estimated to be accurate. But my cookie sheet's not going to quite hold that, so we're just going to be a little bit shy. That's okay. All right, we're going to pop these into the oven, and then 8 to 12 minutes, we'll have some more cookies. All right, where are we sending to next? All right, so next we're sending you over to Dr. Barr.
She's gonna be making a salad, I believe. Not as fun as cookies. No, definitely not as fun. But equally delicious. But it sounds really good.
Oh, any questions? All right, thank you guys.
Hi, everyone. It's hard to follow cookies, but my name is Brianna Barr. I'm one of the residents also. I'll be making the warm cabbage salad, which since it's so cold outside, I think will be a nice change. So to give some of the ingredients that were lovely chopped up for me before, we're gonna start with, I have about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in this pan. I'm gonna start with the celery that's kind of sliced, as he demoed earlier, kind of at the nice angle. See if we can kind of show it. I don't know. Here we get closer. There we go. Yeah, at a nice level angle. So we'll start with that in here to let it soften up. It can cook pretty quickly since it's nice and thin. Okay. Sure. I'm also wearing 2 masks. It's probably.
The cutaway gag.
Stay safe. Yeah. Hand sanitizer.
Oh, sure.
Since I touched my mask and we're all gonna eat some things. Thank you. Alrighty, so I think you guys can be a little bit better now that my voice isn't as muffled. So I am softening my celery in the pan right now. And then once that finishes, we're gonna add some garlic and our cabbage and a little bit of salt, which will be less than what would be in a processed food since we're making it ourselves, which is one of the things that I personally like about cooking at home is that I can control how much salt, how much sugar, and how much hidden, fats are in the meals that I'm making. One cool thing that I learned about this recipe is swapping out the purple cabbage for the green cabbage that we're all really used to seeing. It's got a lot more, I think the fancy word that I can't think of, it's like phyto. What is it?
Oh, anthocyanins, the
Anthocyanins.
purple color.
The sun is in red wine-ish type thing.
There you go.
Eating colorful foods is really useful for adding those healthy things back into our diet for that. So we're gonna throw that in here in a moment. Make sure my cabbage is nice and soft. I'm terrible at talking and keeping track of time, which is why I like to use a timer at home, because I just lose track of time a lot. All right, so I'm adding my garlic right now, and then I'm also going to add this cabbage, which has been sliced.
Eat all of it.
Okay, which has been sliced nice and thin and pretty. So I'm not gonna, I don't think I'll need all of it. It's around 4 cups of the red cabbage. Let's see here. I'm gonna attempt to do this without spilling it all over the floor. That's okay.
One of the things we love about cabbage is number one, it's available all year. It's really cheap, less than $2 for a head. And one head of cabbage could probably make 3 whole pans of this slaw. So the purple color is the heart healthy part of this dish for sure.
I certainly think it brightens up the dull days that we're having right now. So I love this color.
So right now she's just what we would call wilting this cabbage.
Because you don't really need to cook it all the way through. You don't want it mushy. You want it to have a little bit of bite to it. And the other thing about cabbage is it does tend to be a tiny bit bitter. So she's going to be adding some sweetness with the apples here in a minute.
I'm going to saute or wilt the cabbage for about a minute, and then I'm going to add the apples. I think maybe tongs might be easier for this at home, whichever you're more comfortable with. I think this works up decently as well. I'm just thinking, you know, it's okay. Yeah, I think, I don't know, you'll have to try to experiment at home. I like being able to flip it over with the little spatula. Thank you, Dr. Steve. Thank you, Dr.
Oh,
Yeah.
She already shot me down. She's-
Yeah.
We're all giving her a set of tongues.
I know.
I'm not awkward.
I kind of like the flip over of this. I don't know. Maybe. All right, and then I need about 1 apple that's been cored into matchsticks. Just an entire apple.
I think it is 1 apple.
Okay. So this will add some of that sweetness back and some good fiber as well. Which one in here? I'll throw it out. All right. And then we're gonna keep wilting this for another 2 to 3 minutes. So we want it to get soft but not mushy. Kind of keep that crunch in there for some good texture. So we're just mostly warming it up, softening it up to make it a little easier to eat. But you can also just eat red cabbage without cooking it as well, but it is a little bitter, so you want to balance it out and keep that in mind when you're making your salad. You know, balancing a nice sweetness versus bitterness, and think about your dressing choices and things like that. And then just experiment and see what you tend to like the best. This is going. Now I have in this pan is a little bit of salt, a little bit of olive oil, and then we're letting the veggies and everything do the work for us. So while I'm doing that, I almost forgot this part is the dressing. So it has a little bit of Dijon mustard, 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, as well as 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, and then a tablespoon of honey. Thank you for some sweetness. And I've measured that out here. This is the apple cider vinegar as well as the olive oil. I have a teaspoon of mustard and my honey in my bowl already. And then I have my handy whisk here. Gonna whisk all that together, and also a little bit of salt and black pepper to taste. The salt is going to come out of here. Give it a little shake. You don't want to accidentally over salt your food. Black pepper is always a nice thing to add. I want to hurry up. Actually, let me just turn this down. Up in a nice bowl. You want it to be a bowl that's deep enough that you don't splash everywhere. I've also found when I misplaced my whisk, which I can't really do that for, of course, that's fine for a lot of things. That's my dressing. And since I didn't use all my cabbage, Dr. Lorenzo is helping me out with a nice pretty bowl. Let me just put all of this in. I always want to make sure your eye is off so that you don't burn yourself. All right. So there's that. Wilted. And then you're going to toss all of this to coat in our dressing over here. I do have my cheese. And right here. Try to clean up as I go a little bit. Thank you. I'm just tossing this all with the dressing, make sure everything gets nice and coated. If you want to use your tongs here, this will also be really great. I have an assortment of tongs available, and I still am not using it. I don't know why. Right. All right, so once we have all this in here, are we topping with the extra ingredients to mix them in, or are we just kind of putting them on top and making it all pretty? Okay, so I have some pecans here that are nice and chopped up. You can buy them chopped, or if you have them at home, you can always just chop, put them in a little baggie, it's a plug baggie. You take whatever you have. I think we used a lot of the olive oil jar here, so whatever you have, you just chop them up, break them up so they're a little easier to eat. What's that? Say again? Oh, they add nuts to a dish, add lots of protein and healthy fats as well. They break down slower, they help you stay full longer. So I definitely recommend that. Working different nuts into your dishes. This is some feta cheese. When you buy it, it'll come in a block or it'll come already crumbled. The feta that we had for this one was already crumbled, but it had some big chunks in it. So you can still kind of break it up with your hands as you're using it. And then to add a little bit of sweetness, you can use, it's like a natural sugar, it's from a fruit. Dried fruits are really great for that. Adding a bit of sweetness without adding kind of processed sugars. These are apricots. You can also use raisins or cranberries are a nice addition as well. Use a lot of cranberries in my house. And so I took the apricots, they're little circles, and I just sliced them kind of in half and then just slice them in little thin pieces. So you'll get nice little bursts of apricot like as you eat the salad. I'm gonna put those in as well. And then if you go back and taste it and you want a little more, want a little pepper, you can also do that. Colors in here are very nice. Loving this. All right, let's put all that together. I think this said 20 minutes, but I don't think that was 20 minutes. I think this didn't take long at all. That's it. That's it. Does anyone have any questions about this recipe? Okay. If no one has any questions, we're going to jump back over to the soup, which is warming as we speak.
Hi again, we're here to finish up the soup. We are almost done. We've got a better heater in case you didn't notice between the cut. So the soup's actually warm. And I was just talking to the chef, he agrees about, if you got the cooked chicken in here about 20 minutes or so, and you don't have to, thank you.
And so what he's doing now is we're putting in the heavy cream. As you can see, the pot is boiling and adding it, and it doesn't curdle at all. The fat content in there gives it a nice creaminess. And the whole concept is, again, you're looking with your eyes and you're also smelling this. Cooking this throughout the year, you can smell this wonderful curry and the pumpkin. And by putting just a touch of the pumpkin pie spice in, it gives a little bit of oomph. But you can also put in cayenne pepper if you want, crushed red pepper, things like that. Really, it's once you create it, you can kind of use the recipe as a guide and not, as set in stone. And I mean, I rarely make the same thing twice because I'm always trying to change it up or just trying to cook for the people that want it. One of the things as a chef is you can add your own flair, but you're also cooking for everybody else. So you need to work and create recipes and create ideas that are going to be healthy, but something that people are going to enjoy and not spend a lot of time in the kitchen. This is something what you think anybody can put this together with what we did. I mean, if we can put it together, anybody can put this together. This is, this is a good soup.
And it smells great. I know you don't get a chance to smell how good it is, but it really, I'm very hungry.
And this is a little bit bigger than one serving, but we just want to show you what it's like. And then we take the nuts on top.
We didn't even mention, we roasted some, what did we roast? Pecans. And just some roasted pecans on top.
Oh, there's walnuts.
Walnuts.
Pecans were over there.
Yeah, okay, walnuts, thank you. Good save.
Yeah. Sorry. Our off-camera chef helped us.
Thank you so much. Those on top. And do I get to eat it? How does this work?
Yes, well, I don't know. Are we allowed to eat it on air?
Can we eat on camera or because I'm very hungry?
Well, first, I wanted to show everybody kind of what our meal looked like.
All right, I guess I have to wait. All right.
And as you can see, we've got the cookies. They got a great flavor profile.
They are coconut enhanced with the coconut oil, so it is almost like you're eating an almond joy a dessert, but it is very good for you. Much better if you have to have it, especially with the fiber and everything. You've got the lovely color, you've got the beautiful consistency, and you see how everything's chopped up and nice. And what's nice about that is when you grab a forkful, you're looking right here at getting a little bit on your fork. And with this too, you're looking at getting a little bit in your spoon. Everything in there, you don't want to get up. It's not like beef stew where you just want to get one big hunk of potato, one big hunk of beef. Everything here is together, and it's nice when you grab it out with a spoon. And this is a good presentation. This can be a whole meal for you if you think about it. This here mixed with this, and then these. And this soup does freeze well. You can take it and put it in the freezer, put it in containers, however you want to do it. This, I would not recommend freezing it, but it will also go well if you want to put that over like a hot dog or a veggie dog or something like that, or do a slaw or even a barbecue. Goes really well with that. And then these, if you do want to kick it up a notch and you want to stay away from any dairy, put oat milk ice cream or cashew nut ice cream underneath and do it a little bit on top. And you've got like a ice cream cookie, which works out really, really well. And again, a little bit goes a long way. You don't need a lot, so you get that nice flavor in your mouth. Does anybody have any questions about anything we've been doing? Nothing in chat?
Chef, can I eat the soup now, Chef?
I think so.
Thank you, Chef.
Sure. You have anything?
Well, we have actually a little slideshow.
Okay.
Of course.
And, but you guys can all go ahead and make some of your dinner. I wanted everybody to see
Of course.
how nice it looked. So this whole meal came together in 33 minutes. And it's very colorful, very healthy, lots of fiber, lots of antioxidants. It looks great.
And a lot of wonderful aroma with everything here. And you've got the sweet, you've got the salty, you've got a little bit of sour. So you've got all the senses and flavors being presented here, which makes it really nice to have. It's especially on a cold day like today.
And these resident doctors have worked all day and they did a great job of going through the lessons here. So you guys reward yourself by having something to eat.
I'm
And
glad we
we're
got
going
you.
to go through these slides pretty quickly here. While those of you at home can be pretending that you're eating with us. And again, we welcome your questions.
And any feedback you may have.
So we're just going to talk a little bit about some statements that people say about fats and see what you guys have learned. Next slide. So our general rule, what we tell patients, so this isn't the amount of calories that you should have, but this is when you look at your plate, if you look at our plate here, more than half of your plate should be vegetables. So even our soup has a lot of pumpkin and vegetables in it. We've got a nice vegetable salad. And then a quarter of your plate can be your proteins. And then, of course, our little sort of healthy sweet. Next slide. So common statements about fats, and unfortunately, I cannot read that from where I am. Oh, I see it now. So I'm gonna look up there. So what's the one heck thing about getting older, I'm telling you, is eyesight. So first statement is, we're going to go through each of these statements one by one. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So the first statement is low fat, high carb diet is optimal for health. So it's either true or false. You know, for about 70 years, we've been telling everybody that they should reduce fat for their heart health. And what happened over the last 70 years is as merchandisers took fat out of our diet, they replaced the fat with carbohydrates and sugar. Because remember, fats are what give you satiety. They make you feel full. You need fat to absorb a lot of the vitamins like A, D, E, and K. And you'll notice that a lot of people now in their 50s and 60s are finding out they're very vitamin D deficient. And we wondered whether it's because so much fat has been taken out of our diet. So the answer to this is actually false. And next slide will sort of explain what I was talking about, is that we want to have fat in our diet. We don't want to vilify fat. The hard part is that it does have to be healthy fat. So one of the things that we know, for example, is the fat in our whipping cream. Dairy fats used to be considered bad fats because they're saturated fats because they're from an animal. But now we don't think that necessarily is true, and that there are over 400 fatty acids in dairy products. And we actually at the Metabolic Center encourage people to have whole fat dairy because, again, when you take the fat out of dairy, you usually replace it with carbohydrates and sugar. And there are, one of the most recent studies found that dairy fats can actually be preventative against stroke, and that you tend to eat less calories overall if you go ahead and have fat. So we know that fat is important. Go ahead, next slide. Cholesterol-rich foods like eggs are bad for you, true or false? Again, we're going to say false. Next slide. If you looked at all the Time magazine covers in the last 40 years, you will find that some say eggs are bad, some say eggs are good, some say eggs are bad. And currently, right now, eggs are good. We say about 9 eggs a week should be your top. And if you think about it, and I don't think people realize this, half of the protein of the egg is actually in the yolk. So people think of the white as the protein and the yolk as just one big ball of fat. But actually the yolk is where all of the vitamins of the egg are. And how many things do we eat that actually turn into an animal? So that egg is a complete protein, lots of vitamins, and healthy fat. Next slide. Saturated fats raise bad cholesterol and cause heart disease. Well, we do know that we do have to be a little bit mindful of our saturated fats. So our saturated fats come from different sources. They come from our meats. So even chicken has some saturated fat, even fish has saturated fat. But we know that as long as it's about 10% of your calories, of your fat calories, that you're probably good. There is some talk about grain-fed beef has probably a little more omega-3s than I misspoke. The grass-fed beef has a little more omega-3s than the grain-fed beef. I've already mentioned the whole fat dairy. And there are saturated fats from things like coconut oil and palm oil and some of the tropical oils. However, we know there's some of the latest studies talk about that it's really the massive carbohydrates and sugars in our diet that contribute more to heart disease than the cholesterol that you eat on a daily basis. Next slide. So, talking about the red meat, I mentioned that the grass-fed might be a little better, 5 times the amount of omega-3s and a little less monounsaturated fat. Next slide. I've already talked a little bit about the whole fat dairy. The number one source of dairy in the American culture is cheese. And I thought this was kind of interesting, looking at over 150,000 adults over 5 to 15 years, found that those societies that eat a lot of cheese do not necessarily have early death. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So consuming milk, cheese, and yogurt didn't increase heart disease and even slightly decrease the risk of stroke. So again, I do think you have to be mindful of how much cheese you eat per day. And I usually tell the patients that they probably shouldn't have more than 4 ounces of cheese in any one day. Okay, next. I always think of cheese should be a garnish, like we used a little bit of feta cheese as a garnish in our salad, but it wasn't the whole meal. So that's how I think about cheese, and I think about nuts that way too. You could probably spend a long time talking about coconut milk, and you'll find a lot of disagreements here. So I'm not going to get really into it, but we do know that the medium chain triglycerides in coconut milk are a different kind of saturated fat, and they do get to be used up very quickly. And there are some studies that talk about it might be protective against dementia, but we'll save that talk for another time. Next slide. So our summary statement is be mindful of the amount of saturated fat, but nearly 50% of the saturated fat that you eat does not come from that ribeye steak. It comes from all of the processed foods that we eat, like the croissants and the crackers even, a lot of junk food that we eat. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to give up your steak, but I would encourage you to give up a lot of your processed foods. If you're that worried about saturated fat, go ahead and eat a nice piece of steak, but give up all that other stuff that is maybe not so necessarily good for us. Next slide. So for years, we've been told that total and LDL cholesterol are the best indicators of heart risk. Is that still true? We think not. What we realize now is it's this ratio between triglycerides and good cholesterol that is really important. And your triglycerides go up when you have an increased insulin state, which most of us that have metabolic syndrome have. We have way too many triglycerides running around because they are a product of increased insulin, which is what happens when an insulin-resistant person eats a lot of carbohydrates. So again, we're back to being very careful about metabolic syndrome is really a better indicator of heart disease, and being mindful of that ratio. Next slide. It's better to use vegetable oils and margarines because they're healthier than butter. Well, is that true or false? So the thing about butter, butter is, from cows, and it is some saturated fat. However, I don't want you to be eating a stick of butter, right? But it certainly is fine to have some butter. And it probably is better than all of the vegetable oils and margarines, hydrogenated fats that are solid at room temperature are worse for us. And a lot of the vegetable oils that are in a lot of the processed foods, like safflower, sunflower, soybean oil, a lot of those oils have way too many what we call omega-6 fatty acids, which are very inflammatory to the blood vessels. And so you want those oils like avocado oil and olive oil and canola oil that are actually higher in omega-3s. So if you just, again, get rid of those processed foods and go ahead and have your natural foods, your butter, your olives, your avocados, and all of those healthier fats. And you saw that we use nuts pretty liberally here, again, as garnishes for our dishes, but that's a great way to get a lot of healthy fat in our diet. Next. So now you should be able to answer this question: eating fat makes you fat, true or false? And of course, you know that the answer is false, right? Eating fat doesn't make us fat. What makes us fat is probably eating too much sugar and too much processed foods, because we need fat in our diet. And we've already talked a little bit about why: satiety, energy. It even makes our sex hormones. So we want to keep that fat going. Next slide. So people are always saying, what are our healthiest fats? So the healthiest fats are green, because green means go, right? So those are the fats that I have there, avocados, olive oil. These are fish, you know, we should eat fish at least 2 or 3 times a week. Nuts, and even the whole fat dairy and the eggs that we talked about. The not so bad fats are some of the things like butter and lean red meat and the fats that are in meats and coconut oil. And the worst fats are those artificial trans fats. Now, what's interesting about that is, you know, they've kind of been banned from our food supply, but there's one caveat that if they can measure less than a half of a milligram in a serving, they can say that there are no trans fats. But oftentimes the serving is not a real serving. So like 1 Oreo is not a serving of Oreos. They actually say 3 Oreos. So they can falsely change the amount of trans fat that is actually in a product. The other fat that I think that we all should stay away from are the fats that are in processed meats, not necessarily because those are worse fat than red meat, but because it is processed, it's got a lot of those other carcinogenic. And we know for a fact that processed meat excess is associated with colon cancer. So that's not heart health, but certainly for your body's health, processed foods, again, should be a garnish, like a little bit of pepperoni on your pizza, but not the mainstay of your sandwich every day. Next slide. So those are some of the main points that we wanted to get across. We were planning to be here till 7:30. We'd be happy to answer any questions. You can ask the chef questions or any of the young resident doctors or myself, and you can put those in the chat. We hope that you learned something and that you learned that you could make a very healthy meal in 33 minutes from scratch to end. And we really want to thank you for being with us tonight. And if you think you'd enjoy more of these, please let Dana know, and maybe we could do something like this quarterly. Is there anything in the chat?
Thank you.
Oh, excellent. Well, we'll be here for a few more minutes. So if there's some questions you want to ask us, please feel free to do so. And I'm glad to see some people cooking. That's excellent. Let us know if what you're making tastes good. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add, or Chef Scott? How was the food, guys?
Really good.
Okay, I see a lot of happy faces over here. Is there anything else that you think we should do? Okay.
Bon appetit.
Bon appetit, everybody. We'll let you go early and enjoy your meal. Thank you.
Thank you.